You're watching Pedestal by Ashley Sargeant Hagan. Chapter 7. As he walked toward Kensington Palace, Edwin suddenly felt exposed. Maybe this was a bad idea. I'll be recognized for certain. Should have worn the hat. David had warned him against public appearances. Stay low right now, he had urged. I know you like this girl, but after the museum thing and the Bella Luna thing, if you don't want the paparazzi following you around, just stay at home or something. Good advice, but I can handle myself in public. It's not like I'm in danger. He saw Adriana standing just inside the palace gate, off of Kensington Road. She waved and smiled. She had wanted to meet him there instead of having him pick her up. She's very independent, American. That's okay. Hi, he said as he approached her. Hi, she replied. She seemed out of breath and her cheeks were more pink than usual. Did you find the place all right? He asked. I worry about you wandering about the city on your own. No problems, she said. Well then, why don't we go ahead? He paused as he saw something out of the corner of his eye. On Kensington Road, he saw flashing lights of police vehicles. What's going on over there? He asked. Not sure, she said, following his gaze. Car accident? It doesn't look like it, he said, squinting. It looks like something's happening in front of that block of flats. She shrugged. We could walk over, she suggested. No, he said, it's none of our concern. Let's go on. They took the broad walk to the palace. The day was warm for June. The sun shining through the branches of the oak trees made dappled pictures on the grass below. Edwin was thankful he could put on his sunglasses to hide his face a little better. He stole a furtive glance at Adriana walking beside him. She seemed to be relaxing as they walked. Why was she tense before? Nervous to see me again? Ready to get back on the pedestal, he teased, wondering if that had been her source of concern. Bethany didn't want me to meet you today, Adriana admitted. She's concerned that the paparazzi will be out in full force since the other night. Well, Bethany could be right, he agreed. Note to self. Never good for the best friend to be against you. David, my publicist, agrees. He told me to stay low this week. Maybe this was a bad idea, she suggested. He shrugged. We can't hide away because someone might take a photo. We have lives too. She nodded. It was kind of weird seeing myself online, she said. But you looked beautiful, said Edwin. My mother agrees. Oh dear. Yes, I'm afraid so. She saw the paparazzi pictures. Her housekeeper, Millicent, is to blame. She keeps teaching Mother new tricks. I'm not sure I like having her computer literate. She can be a bit of a troublemaker. Adriana laughed. Well, you're blessed to still have her with you. I wish I still had mine. I'm so sorry, said Edwin. Good show. Bring up the memory of her dead parent. It's okay, she said, her eyes on the ground. What happened? She shook her head as if to ward off any more questions. I don't want to talk about it, not right now. They continued on in silence. Kensington Palace had been home to several kings and queens of England. It was even the childhood home of Queen Victoria. While some royals still lived in the flats in the palace, rooms were open to the public, and the palace, especially the surrounding gardens, was a popular attraction. As they passed a statue of a seated Queen Victoria, Adriana gazed up at her. I've always liked her, she confessed. Quite a formidable character, agreed Edwin. She was certainly influential. Adriana smiled. A force to be reckoned with, I'm sure, she said, gazing fondly up at the face of the statue. A woman ruler in an age when women didn't have a voice in politics. Can you imagine the strength she must have had, she asked, turning to Edwin. Edwin looked up into the face of the monarch. She reminds me of my mother, he replied, surprised by that revelation. Mine too, murmured Adriana, turning away. Inside the palace, Edwin and Adriana consulted the self-guided tour pamphlet. So far, Edwin had received a few second glances and caused quite a stir from the young ladies at the ticket counter, but had not caused any major disruptions. David would be pleased. Just focus on Adriana, don't look anyone directly in the eye, and there won't be any disturbances. That works. So far. Within the palace were 4 staircases with 4 exhibits. They took the king's staircase first. It was breathtaking, with paintings by 18th century artist William Kent on the walls and ceilings. In the paintings, life-size courtiers leaned over banisters and peered down from the ceiling, poised to observe everything and everyone at court. "Feels like we're being critiqued as we go up," whispered Adriana. "I wonder if we pass muster and can be admitted into court," Edwin teased. At the top of the stairs, a group had gathered around an explainer who was giving more details about the staircase and the artist who had been commissioned to paint it. As the guide addressed the group, reciting the information like he did each and every day, he gazed lazily across his audience. Suddenly he recognized Edwin and stopped in mid-sentence. The rest of the crowd immediately followed his stare to the back of the group. "You're Edwin Sterling," he finally managed to say. There was a collective intake of breath. "All my life," admitted Edwin matter-of-factly. The rest of the group tittered a bit, staring at him as if he were part of the museum. Only a few noticed Adriana and smiled in her direction. "Well," continued the guide, clearing his throat, "welcome to Kensington. As I was saying, the King's Staircase—" His audience immediately turned its attention back to him. Edwin breathed a sigh of relief. Royalty trumps celebrity, thank God. He glanced at Adriana. "Is she all right? Is she ready to run?" She was smiling up at him. "Shall we continue, Mr. Sterling?" she teased. He offered her his arm gallantly. "Yes, Miss Allen, we shall." The palace gardens were extensive and in full bloom, it being summer. Everywhere they looked, there was something new and beautiful. Edwin and Adriana paired off by themselves, although they were not completely out from under the watchful, though respectful eyes of the other visitors. Since being recognized by the explainer, Edwin was finding it difficult to relax. He imagined every bush or thicket as a potential hiding spot for a journalist or photographer. Adriana still had a walking tour pamphlet in her hand and was reading from it as they walked along. "This is the Sunken Garden," she said in an official-sounding voice. "It was planted in 1908 and modeled after a similar garden at Hampton Court Palace." They passed a family from Germany as they walked up the Wiggly Walk, a winding path to the Sunken Gardens. The children giggled and laughed as they ran. "People, people, people," murmured Edwin, frowning. Everywhere they had gone, inside, there had been people, on the staircases, in the state apartments, in the grand galleries. Edwin was tired of people. "There's no getting away from them, and I want her to myself." He took Adriana's hand and led her to a walkway covered completely by arched branches of trees. "Oh, how lovely!" she exclaimed. She consulted her guidebook. "The Cradle Walk surrounds the sunken garden with arched viewpoints." She looked up as the branches gave way to an archway at the foot of the sunken garden pool, giving a dazzling view of the fountains and flowers. Each terrace level was vibrant with color. Deep purple and red pansies, English lavender, and red and pink roses led down to a rectangular pool with a central fountain. She stood enraptured for a moment. "Don't you think roses are the most beautiful flower in the world?" she asked. "Yes," Edwin agreed as he impatiently pulled her along, away from the view of others, to a secluded bench under the tunnel of tree branches. No people, no watchers. Before sitting down, however, he couldn't help taking a look through the branches behind him. No paparazzi. "The Cradle Walk," continued Adriana from her guidebook, undeterred, "is an arched arbor of red-twigged lime trees." She gazed above her at the entwined branches. "Just think, Edwin. These lime trees have been here since 1908. Edwin pulled in closer to her, allowing her body to lean against his chest. "Fascinating," he said into her hair. She paused for a moment as if catching her breath. "The lime trees have been cut back to the ground," she continued reading as he kissed her temple, "to preserve the original tree stock and allow new stems to be trained over the framework of the bower." She turned toward him. "You're not paying attention," she whispered, smiling. "Oh, I'm paying very close attention," he whispered back, leaning his forehead against hers. "To the guidebook?" she asked. "To you." Edwin cautiously leaned his face closer to hers. His lips found hers. She returned his kiss, shyly at first, reaching up to touch his cheek with her hand. They kissed again, more boldly now, more passionately. She pulled back suddenly, shaking her head. "No, Edwin." "I'm sorry," he apologized. "Too fast. Slow down, you idiot." No, don't apologize, said Adriana. I can't. She stood up and paced back and forth in front of the bench. Edwin stiffened. You're not attracted to me, are you? He asked suddenly and pathetically. Adriana giggled softly, turning to look at him. Quite the opposite, I'm afraid. She likes me. Then what's wrong? Bethany doesn't like me. Is that it? He asked, frowning. No, it's my fault, Adriana continued. I mean, yes, Bethany was against it from the start, but she's my friend, not my mother. I just thought I could handle it. But I can't, obviously. Handle what? She sighed. She sat down beside him again. When we first met, I thought, what's the harm? Talk to him. You'll never see him again. But then you wanted to see me again. I convinced myself that we could be friends, that I wouldn't allow myself to get close to you. What's wrong with getting close to me? She bowed her head, avoiding the intensity of his gaze. It's work, she explained without lifting her eyes. I need to concentrate on work right now. Work, he repeated, unconvinced. She nodded, clenching her jaw. Yes, I need to give my full concentration. I can't be distracted by anything. So what does this mean? Please don't say it. It means that after today, I can't see you again, she said. I think that will make it easier for both of us. She said it. Edwin's heart sank. Because I kissed you, he asked. No, she said, lifting her eyes to his. Because I kissed you. Edwin stood up and walked a few steps away. He ran his hands through his hair, as if the action would speed up his thinking. There must be some way. There has to be. He whirled around. What if I promise to be your friend? Only. No romance. No distraction. Edwin, she said, shaking her head. He sat down beside her again. Please, Adriana, he said, taking her hand. I've never met anyone like you. I've never met anyone so real. So real, she repeated with a slight snicker. These last few days have been some of the best days of my life. Mine too. You said the other night that you hoped our friendship would help my loneliness. Did you mean it? Yes, of course, but we don't even live on the same continent. Please don't shut me out completely. If you say you can't be distracted right now, I respect that. I don't understand it, but I respect it. But isn't there room in your schedule for friendship? Adriana stared down at his hand, tightly holding hers. Then she placed her other hand on top. Friendship only? She asked, her eyebrows raised challengingly. I promise, Edward answered seriously. For now.